So what'd you think? Did you like it? Well, I'd love to welcome JJ Johnson from Sinking Ship, who is the creator, and he's a writer and a director and a fabulous guy. Welcome. And so JJ, there's this great quote which you probably heard. Only if we understand can we care. Only if we care we can help. And only if we help they shall be saved. And that was a quote of Jane Goodall's. And how did you come up with the show, and why the story about Jane Goodall?
The inspiration started about 5 years ago when I started to have my own kids. And I remember we had a little girl named Ripley. And you're in the delivery room, and it's this magical moment full of like promise and possibility. And I was so like, oh, this is everything it's meant to be. And then within minutes, I had this like overwhelming anxiety about like the planet that they're going to inherit and what's going on. And I just like, it threw me. And so that was the initiation of like, what can we do? And it took me back to when I was a kid growing up in the 80s. The person that really made me feel safer about the world was learning about Dr. Jane Goodall principally, and then other people like David Suzuki, and I just felt so comforted that there were people dedicating their entire lives to helping the planet. And so that was like the beginning of the construction of what this thing could be, and that we knew we wanted to partner with an organization that could take what we hoped would be inspiration from the show and move it into action. The actual construction of the show is it actually follows that quote when I stumbled upon that. And it is this idea that if you don't understand an animal, so these episodes open up with a little bit of like a mission and getting to know what this animal is. If you don't understand it, then there's no way that you're going to be able to care about it. And if you don't care about something, then you're not going to do anything to help and save it. So the story kind of follows this track of like, let's learn about this incredible animal. Let's see how they live and how they're similar to us. Let's have a heart moment where you fall in love with them, hopefully, and then let's try to figure out how to pivot that into some sort of action. Hopefully that comes across in the show.
And so once you were able to get the support of the Jane Goodall Institute, and we're going to have Anna Rothman speak about the Institute in a little bit, how did you sort through what stories and what issues? Because we're talking about endangered animals, but then we're also talking about issues like recycling and a lot of things like that. So how did you possibly figure out which ones to focus on?
Yeah, it's kind of simple, and it goes back to like being a kid. We kind of create this like story flow chart where you take animals, and JGI, the Jane Goodall Institute, was instrumental in helping us research which animals from around the world were endangered. And why they were endangered. So we take those story points, and then we think about like community members and kid-relatable stories and try to see where there's connections. And so something like the monarch butterfly, who travels 3,000 kilometers all the way from Mexico to Canada. They die along the way, all so that their babies can have a better life. Dovetails perfectly with an immigration story of a family moving to a new place so that their kids have a better life. So we're trying to find what's that connection? Because I think sometimes, we approach animals from a documentary, or, we're watching from afar and not looking at how we're similar to them, that we're all kind of on this life struggle. And if you can find those dovetails, I just think you get more interesting stories that you can relate to as a person.
So how many of you loved Graybeard? Yeah, we love Graybeard. And there's a lot of really cool animals, right? So tell us about the animals. Are those real animals?
No. But I love that there have been some people that were like, how did you get, a chimpanzee to react like that? No, they're all VFX, and obviously because we wanted to have this deeper moments and connections and some frightful moments and action adventure. So they're all CG. Great team of people that pulled together to do them. I think Graybeard's like one of our best, because you're trying to, play homage to a chimpanzee that loomed large in Dr. Goodall's life. David Graybeard, and that's how David got his name as well, was the first chimpanzee that accepted her after months of waiting. So we wanted to kind of give a nod to that. And then, wanted to make him feel like part of this trio. So yeah, a lot of work to facial recognition and all that kind of stuff.
And how long does it take to make an animal like that?
It's 8 months, so it's a long time from the moment we locked that episode to finishing it up.
Wow. And tell us a little bit about once you knew what the issues were and the stories. Talk a little bit about the cast. How many of you love Jane, which is played by Ava Louise Murchison, right? And David, played by Mason Blumberg. Can you talk a little bit about, okay, now how do we put together this cast?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough because the thing I love about our Jane character is she's not perfect. You know, she's angry and she has anxiety and a lot of heart. And I think anger and anxiety, I don't know how to say this properly, but like I think we sometimes look at those as negative emotions when really, if you're angry or you're anxious and you can use that as motivation, you can almost do anything. So it's trying to pivot this character who does have those feelings but finds a way to kind of use them to become kind of like a mini activist. And so to find an actor that could take that and instantly dovetail into someone who loves this animal and that you see that the anger is coming from not being able to help them. We were worried about finding that actress, and Ava Louise, came in and just nailed it. She's got this, raw action adventure energy that very quickly can turn into really sincere compassion. And then Mason, who plays David, who I was just talking to some people upstairs, he had learned about Dr. Goodall for years before the show. He became a vegetarian because of her, so he wanted this role like desperately. And when he got it, we didn't have to like tweak it. Like he is just kind of naturally funny, and he's this like idealized friend that is on this voyage because she is. Like she's such a leader and so inspiring that she draws him along with it. But we just saw him in an interview in like San Diego, and the interviewer had asked Mason, what's your dream role to get? And he's like, I think I've already had it, which is just like super cute.
And so many of you may not know, but how many Janes did you see before you landed on Ava Louise?
Between the two roles, we saw 13,000 kids from around the country.
And how did you do that? Was it like American Idol where they send in a video?
No, it's self-tape. So we went through 13,000 tapes, and then we would do an initial round of auditions and then eventually chemistry reads. But, you want to... We're hoping that this show is not just a TV show, that it does inspire kids and families to action. So we were also looking for kids that would want to participate in that. And they're both thrilled that now they've become ambassadors to Roots and Shoots. Like, it wasn't just an acting gig. This was also how do we start a conversation and hopefully a little bit of a movement.
And so what's also really cool, how many of you liked seeing like the real scientists at the end of the episode? Wasn't that really cool? Yeah. And so can you tell us a little bit about how you found Jill Heinworth and how you found Melanie Kirby, and like how did you match them with each episode?
Yeah, so again, this is where JGI and their contacts throughout the world are so important because they would introduce us to a ton of people. And we were looking for individuals from around the world. Like we chose animals around the world because we're lucky to be on a service like Apple TV that is playing in 100+ countries. So we wanted kids to see people in their local communities that were doing something. All of these individuals have started their own organizations to get more girls and diversity in this field. And what's great about them is when you listen to their stories, I think of the 10, all 10 say that it was a moment in their childhood that really launched them into saving that particular animal. For 3 of them, it was hearing or reading about Dr. Goodall that did it. So we're hoping that by including them, by showing this young heroine that we have, that this could be that moment for other kids to activate them to hopefully a life of conservation, or at least thinking about the environment a little bit more.
Well, I wanted to invite Anna Rothman to join us. She's the executive director of the Jane Goodall Institute, and we could talk a little bit more about what all of you can do.
Thank you. And thank you to the Geena Davis Institute for having us. Thank you to our partners at Sinking Ship and to Apple for this series and giving us this platform to really share these stories.
And so, what was your thought when you got a phone call from JJ saying, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this show, and what do you think?" And
So let me start off by saying my three young children are huge fans of Odd Squad, and so they were thrilled beyond belief. So I became very cool in our household with that. But it's a wonderful opportunity. As JJ said, and has been part of our conversations with Sinking Ship, this is really about sharing Jane's story and Jane's inspiration with new audiences and with younger generations. We talk a lot at the Institute, at the Jane Goodall Institute, about inspiring hope through action, and that's what this series embodies.
so, as we said, Jane Goodall loved animals and had such a passion, and actually had her own toy chimpanzee when she was a young girl. How closely does she feel connected to our new Jane in the show?
Well, they both love animals, so right there, that's a great foundation. But you're exactly right. It's about that moment of inspiration for Jane herself. It was receiving this stuffed chimpanzee that was celebrating the birth of a chimpanzee, I believe at the London Zoo, that her father gave to her, and the name of that chimpanzee was Jubilee. And that was really what kind of sparked her imagination. But Jane will be very quick to point out that when people ask what's her favorite animal, oftentimes people will assume it's chimpanzees because of her work with them, but it's actually a dog.
Oh,
And she says how, as a young child, it was working with her dog and learning from her dog that taught her about animal intelligence, that taught her about animal emotions, and showed that all animals are individuals. So,
that's exciting. So, one of the things we wanted to talk about is, now that you've seen the show and hopefully you'll keep watching it, what can you do to help? And I know I want to make sure when everyone leaves, we have some really great goodie bags for you and you can actually plant a tree. But can you talk a little bit about Roots and Shoots and how everyone can get involved and how they can help?
yeah, thank you. So, at the Jane Goodall Institute, we have a wonderful program that was started actually by 12 young people in Tanzania over 30 years ago, and that's called Roots and Shoots. And Roots and Shoots is a global program where young people come together. They create programs in their own communities that address people, other animals, and the planet. So, coming up with very holistic projects, and they can look like anything. It can look like a garbage cleanup day. It can look like working at an animal shelter. Takes on all sorts of forms. And Roots and Shoots, because of the global nature of it, it gives young people an opportunity to be part of something bigger that is truly a global community of people working to make the world a better place. So what we have loved about this series is it's giving us an opportunity to introduce that program and introduce those kind of one step that someone can take. That's another quote that I love that is used throughout the series, where Jane says that all of us can make a difference every day. And that's something that we're so happy to be partnering on this series around.
So, for any of you who weren't familiar with Roots and Shoots, because I wasn't, how would our members of our audience find Roots and Shoots?
Yeah, thank you. You can go to joinjane.org. That's a great starting place. And when you go there, you'll see some video clips from Jane Garcia, and that will direct you then to your local Roots and Shoots in your area. There is one in the United States that's quite robust. And stay tuned. We're going to have some new exciting things coming out very soon.
Well, before we close out, so JJ, what other kind of animals and issues and things are we going to see over the series?
There's 10 episodes in our first season, and hopefully we will have many more episodes after that. But yeah, again, it's covering. We wanted to make sure we weren't just doing the furry, cute animals. And that we looked also at insect life. And I learned a lot through the show, too. Like, I obviously was like a fan of bees. I had no idea how important they were to us as human beings, that without them, 90% of the stuff we eat, we wouldn't have. So I think hopefully across the whole season, you'll see we go underwater with blue whales and great white sharks, things that sometimes we're afraid of that actually need our protection. So wide range of animals.
And And so, on that note, did you travel to shoot the series? I mean, was it all on a sound stage, or how did you do
Yeah,
that?
no, it's one of the reasons that I love that we work in live action. Our mission is to get, especially with this show, is to get kids excited about the real world. And I think to do that, you have to show them how exciting the real world is. So we were lucky to be able to film in Kenya. We filmed in Costa Rica, in Alberta, Canada for the polar bear opening sequence. And then a lot of the rest of our shooting was in Toronto. But we really stayed away from blue screen and tried to, again, go to the places or at least be able to show some scenery from those locations.
Wow, that's great. So, does anyone have a question that they want to ask before we? I'm trying to see here. Does anyone have a question? Don't be shy. Oh, yes, right here. Here, let me give this to you. So we can hear you.
Wonderful job. It was really a lot of fun to watch. And I have a 4-year-old son as well, I think, who loves animals. And I think he'd love it as well, even though
Thank you.
the characters are older. Just 2 questions. One is, I mean, it'd be really wonderful for the series to be a great success because it's such a wonderful mission behind it. I was wondering if you'd be partnering with, like, schools, because if you could propagate, so to speak, those seeds in the educational environment, it's actually a perfect vehicle for educating the students about these animals and conservation. I could just see it also relieving some poor teachers, workload a little bit by supplementing. And then the second question I had was, is Dr. Goodall going to be making a cameo at some point?
That might be a secret. One of the great things with working with Apple TV as well as the Jane Goodall Institute is their networks into schools. So there will be a lot of material coming out from both. But I would also say none of this is going to work if we don't get the support and buy-in from people that are watching the show. Even to your point of, like, can this be in a school? JGI is like perfect to go to them to say, I'd love to do a school-based program in my local school. It really does have to be all of us working together toward this. Our opening theme song which was written by Diane Warren, which is incredible, is all about taking that first step, and then after that first step, the next step, and then inviting someone else to walk alongside you. So we need everyone to do this all and hopefully take that inspiration and drive it to your own action with your family and then eventually to your community.
And did you have a question?
What the real kids in the show?
Were the kids real? Super real. They were, yeah, incredibly real and really, really funny. I hope you get to meet them one day in person because they are very much like their characters, but they're just, part of the fun of working in kids' TV is, and why I like kids in general, is I feel like kids every day want to maximize their fun. It's like a skill we lose as adults. And so when you're around them and they're playful and enjoying it, and we were talking about this a little earlier, I also think kids have a better view of the world. Like if you ask a kid, should we help these animals? It's so clear, like, well, we've got to do something. Like, we can't lose these animals. And I think, again, as adults, we find ways to, like, put barriers and issues around and make it far more complicated than, no, we need to come together and do something. So yes, that was a long answer. I'm sorry. They're real. Yeah, and great.
So, Alana, I think you had a question? Okay.
I love that you asked. Sorry, did I cut you off? Was there? No, sorry. I love that you asked that because one of the ways that we chose the people were asking them, look, if kids, because we're modeling a little girl who reaches out to them because she wants to learn some more stuff. And I'm like, would you be comfortable if hopefully tens of thousands of kids reached out to you? And they were all like, absolutely. So I would say go direct. They're all doing incredible things. They are beautiful people. Like they're doing the hard work kind of on behalf of all of us. And I think when you can have a little person or a family reach out and say, I was so inspired by what you're doing, how can I help? That this is their life's mission, so they would be appreciative. I also think absolutely
Yeah, 100%. There's also some other programs that we're piloting with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. I don't know if Joe's still here, but where we are working with classrooms and getting them direct access to some of the experts at the end of it. So teachers, coming back to the original question about can teachers and classrooms be involved? Yes. And I'll just underscore and reiterate what JJ shared, which is all of these experts are such wonderful, approachable people. And so, inspiring the next generation is part of it. But happy to be a resource at the Jane Goodall Institute. Please feel free to reach out to us and let us know how we can support you too.
So I know we're at time. I just wanted to thank our friends at Apple TV Plus. And I have a question. Are all the episodes available right now, or is it just one episode, 2 episodes?
All 10 episodes.
Aha! So guess what all of you are doing over the weekend? We're going to binge watch Jane. And I just want to thank JJ for creating the show. I want to thank the Jane Goodall Institute for being such a great partner. Want to thank Apple TV Plus. Want to thank SAG-AFTRA Foundation, who lent us their wonderful theater. And I want to thank all of you for spending your Saturday with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.